Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be showing you guys my eyeshadow palette collection. So first up I have my mini Jawbreaker palette from Jeffree Star Cosmetics. The packaging is really nice. It has his iconic star logo. Even though it is a small eyeshadow palette, since it is Jeffree Star Cosmetics, you are expecting a mirror. There's a total of 3 shimmers within the 9 shades, and I went along and I showed you guys some swatches because they're so creamy. It's like the formula is really nice. So up next I have the Zooboo palette by Juvia's Place, and the packaging on this palette is so cute. So this palette's like really colorful, and if you do follow my Instagram you can tell that I do a lot of colorful looks. I have used this palette a lot. I don't know why it looks like it doesn't. I think it's just because the pans are so big. But my favorite shades are the shimmers once again, and I'm pretty much just going to be showing you guys swatches of like every shimmers in every palette. But the shimmers in this palette are like super pigmented and they're just really creamy. I think this is like the perfect palette to create a sunset look, and anybody that has this palette can definitely back me up. It is worth the money, and the shade yellow is so pigmented. So yeah, I recommend you buying it if you don't have it. So up next I have the Kylie Cosmetics 2019 Holiday Collection eyeshadow palette. I haven't used it. I think I've only used it twice actually, and I did like the shimmers. I think that's why I used this palette. I think I'm gonna dive into it more in the future, but yeah, I can't really say much about this palette. As I was watching some of the shadows, I think I know why I used the shimmers. They felt so creamy, like they glided on my lids like super easily, and you can definitely tell by me swatching that they're really pigmented. So up next I have a Take Me Home eyeshadow palette from ColourPop. This was limited edition, and guys, I'm not kidding when I say this was my first palette. That's why it looks so destroyed. When I started doing makeup, this was the first palette I bought because it was really cheap. I think it was only like $10 or $12. So I bought it, and I guess that's how my makeup journey started. But I've reached pan on one shadow specifically, and that was a shimmer. That was my favorite color to ever dive into. Like, I would not dive into any other palette but that one. And I think that's the only reason like I love ColourPop Cosmetics, is because their palettes are so good, but yet they're so cheap at the same time. So then I had the Take Me Back to Brazil palette, and this is my second oldest eyeshadow palette. I think this was like the first colorful eyeshadow palette that I bought only because I wanted to start creating colorful looks. And you can tell that it's really old when I like turn it over because it's like really dirty. But then again, like, it is really good, so like how is it not gonna get dirty? And when I opened up the palette, you can tell that like I really liked it because like I've hit pan on like almost all the shades. I did like this palette because the shadows are just, you know, colorful, and it's just really colorful palette. But 3 shades that I didn't reach into were the bottom 3, which were the black and the 2 highlights. The 2 highlights just felt really powdery to me. They didn't feel like highlights, and well, I'm dark toned, so they were really light for me. But besides it being light, they just felt like powder to me. But the palette itself is really nice. So up next I have the Moods eyeshadow palette from Laura Makeup Labs. It is a really pretty eyeshadow palette. I think the packaging is really nice, and when you open up the palette, it does have a mirror, and it does have 4 shimmers and 4 mattes with 2 highlights. I've used 2 highlights both as actual highlights and as an eyeshadow, and they work really great. The formula is really good, it's pigmented, and it's really glowy. So if you like a good highlight, then I suggest getting this eyeshadow palette. The only eyeshadow that didn't work for me was the dark brown because it was a little bit patchy for me, but besides that, all the other shades were really good, especially the blue eyeshadow. It is a shimmer and it's really pigmented. I suggest getting this palette just because of that shadow. Like, it's that good. I use it a lot, and I prefer these shimmers over the James Charles palette because I'm pretty sure the James Charles palette has like 4 of these, and I just prefer the shimmers in this palette. So next I have an eyeshadow palette, Sweet Tart from Galilee Collection, and I had won this eyeshadow palette in a giveaway. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit scared to use it because at first I was thinking like, oh, like I've never used anything besides like drugstore or like high end, so I was thinking like maybe the formula is gonna be powdery or maybe it's just not gonna work good. But guys, this palette worked really nice. The shadows were really good. They weren't powdery or anything, they were kind of creamy in a way, but they blended so good with it, with like their own shadows and any other eyeshadow palette. The only shadow that didn't work for me was the shadow on the right lower end. It looks like a brown and a black at the same time, like a really dark brown. It just came out patchy and like it just didn't want to blend with any color, or it just didn't work for me. So yeah. So up next I have the Soft Glam eyeshadow palette by Anastasia Beverly Hills, and when you open up the palette you do get a soft glam vibe. The colors are very neutral, yet there's some pressed glitters and shimmers, and the color that I first pointed at is my favorite shimmer. It's actually pressed glitter and it's so buttery and creamy. And if you are following me on Instagram, you can tell that this is my go-to for soft glam eyeshadow looks. So up next I have the Alyssa Edwards eyeshadow palette by Anastasia Beverly Hills. The packaging is really subtle, it's just a pink color, but it's really pretty at the same time. The eyeshadow palette is really colorful, and I have used this palette like I believe 3 times already with 3 different looks on my Instagram. And the yellow is really pigmented. I really liked it when I first used it. And the shimmer shadow is really pigmented as well. I really recommend you guys getting this palette if you don't have it already. So up next I have the I Glitterly Can't eyeshadow palette from Beauty Treats, and it's pretty much just an eyeshadow palette of pure glitters. I didn't like this palette. I've used it a few times and I think after this video I'm gonna throw it out. It's not the best, and the swatches aren't really the best either. So up next I have the Morphe 25-8 eyeshadow palette, and it's pretty much just a bunch of neutrals and browns. The shades do apply nice, the formula is really good. So next from Morphe I have the 35M eyeshadow palette, and it's a really beautiful palette. It's really colorful, it has mattes and shimmers, and I use it a lot. The only problem is that the orange was my favorite shade and it just happened to be broken when I first bought the palette. Also, with all my shimmers from my mini palette that I use, I usually apply them with a brush. I don't like getting my fingers dirty, but if I have to use my fingers then I will. The only problem is that when I do use my fingers to like create looks with these shadows, it's a lot harder and they just don't apply as well. So for my next Morphe eyeshadow palette, I have the Morphe 3502, and it consists of a lot of neutrals and browns, but I feel like that's just any other Morphe palette. I feel like all Morphe palettes have browns. I don't know. And I really like this palette because it has like a little pop of red or orange. It's like a mixture of orange and red, but those two colors are really nice. So then up next I have the James Charles x Morphe collaboration. I think everybody has this palette and I think it goes like the same way for everybody. I really like this eyeshadow palette. It's really colorful, it has highlights, it has contour, but the contour doesn't work for me. I feel like the contour makes me look orange, so I decided not to use it. The shimmers and the highlights work really good, except some of the shimmers I have to use my fingers again, and I prefer using a brush, but that's okay. That is it for today's video, guys. I hope you liked it. If you like it, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. If you want to see some looks that I create, follow me on Instagram.